Just 2 hours into deliberations of the Diddy trial, and a note was sent to the judge from the jurors complaining about a fellow juror.
We have a juror number 25, who we are concerned cannot follow your honor's instructions. The foreperson then asked to speak with the judge or that particular juror be interviewed. So what do we know about juror number 25? We know he's male. We know he is a scientist. We know that during the jury selection process that he had told both sides that he had seen that hotel video in which Sean Diddy Combs is seen assaulting Cassie Ventura. This is inside the Intercontinental Hotel in Los Angeles. He had said that he did see that video, and he also said, Julia, that he had formed an opinion about that particular video. But then he was very clear that he was able to set his opinion aside to be able to go forward and have a fair, impartial look at this entire case. But now we're having a situation where this same juror now, according to the note that was just sent out, is not following those instructions.
So how did they get the information that what's on this note? Is that public information?
Yeah, so what happened was the note was presented, and I guess that they had to tell that there was a note. So everybody goes running back into the courtroom, and then the judge reads the note out loud.
Oh, really?
For everyone to hear. And then they actually even had it posted like on the newscast where we were hearing, that you're able to read exactly what the note said. And so what does the judge say in return? This.
And so what did the judge end up saying? How did he handle this situation? He sent them back and said, you are supposed to follow the jury instructions. Go back and continue deliberating. So that is where we stand right now, Julia, with that big development here in court. How that's going to proceed, we'll have to wait and see, because if you have a juror that's unwilling to follow instructions this soon in, of course, that's a big disruption when you have to go through such a long, the jury instructions are huge in this case. And if you have a juror who's unwilling to go through those and participate and really give a thoughtful, deliberate process in regard to deciding a man's fate, that's going to be an issue. We'll have to see if there's any more developments in regard to that.
Sorry, what instructions he's not following?
I'm not
probably,
sure.
in my opinion,
guilty, I'm done.
Based on the charges are not about the violence against Cassie.
Oh, true.
It's about these charges, and you're letting the Cassie, which leads me to believe a couple things here. One, that could result in a hung jury. Two, it could result in a not guilty plea, because don't you have to have all the jurors agree?
To be unanimous,
Yes, you do. But I don't know that, we don't know that the discrepancy or not following instruction has anything to do with Cassie.
That's true.
We just know that this juror in particular has said, I have seen the video. So we don't know. But we do have our official attorney, Lisa Lanier, on the phone, who's going to tell us. I mean, this is a big deal.
It is.
When one juror is being singled out for not following the instruction, what happens? And we do have Lisa Lanier on the phone. Good morning, Lisa.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, I'm following this super closely like you guys are. It's so exciting. This is very unusual. Almost unheard of for right out of the gate, one of the jurors to be reported to not. And at first, everyone was like, well, what do they mean follow? Do they mean he doesn't understand the instructions, or they do mean that he will not obey the instructions? And I think it is very much the latter. This guy has a PhD in molecular biology. He was also described as working as a veterinarian, so I don't know if he has dual degrees. His interests are documentaries, hiking, and opera. So he is he's not a dummy.
Total nerd.
And, right, total nerd and not a dummy. So it's not that he can't, I'm sure it's not that he can't understand them. So what I think probably happened is that usually at the beginning, when they first get in there in the room, they go around and say what their either initial feelings are, initial reactions. Do they have a gut? Sometimes they even start like taking voting, kind of early on. And he must have said something about being really dug in because he saw the video or something like that. And he may have said, I'm not changing my mind. I know, and they may have felt that he wasn't because the judge read jury instructions to them for 2 hours. That's a long time.
Oh, my gosh.
It's a lot of instructions. And a part of that, is that they're to evaluate the evidence and not to, make any rush to judgment based on the video and things like that. And so I think maybe he sounded like he was behaving in a way that is counter to that. But it was resolved. Whatever it was resolved because another note was passed out a few hours later that said jury deliberations were well underway and basically that all was good.
Okay.
But there was another question about whether controlled substances, if someone asks for the drugs, is that still distribution? And that is a very pro-Diddy, pro-defense question because what they're evaluating the consent of the user. Now, it's clear, the law is clear, regardless of whether the drug user asks for the drugs or not, it's still distribution. And the interesting thing was that they had to ask this because it was one of the key points that the prosecution drove home in their closing was that for distribution, it doesn't matter if the user consented or asked for it. They explicitly said that and hammered that home. And here they are asking about that, which was interesting. The jury actually asked the judge, the foreperson asked the judge to speak to him or to speak to juror number 25. That just doesn't happen. This process is, it's an ancient, historical process where they pretty much communicate through notes and very little is given in the way of answer. And then, like you saw here, the judge consulted with both attorneys about how to answer that question, and they just decided to tell them to go back and basically keep deliberating and try to work it out, which they did. And so I think he just has his mind made up, or said he did, and then, ultimately maybe backed off of that and agreed to talk through the evidence. That's my take on it. But you're absolutely right. I think it points to a great possibility for a mistrial, for a hung jury.
Wow.
In a hung jury, then it can be retried if the prosecution, or I guess the feds, decide to retry it, or how's that work?
Right.
Okay.
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. And they asked a whole flurry of questions. They also asked about, in general, the Drug Distribution Act and conspiracy charges, and for some explanation on that. And that was a kind of a pro-prosecution question. It sounded like they were leaning toward, hey, we're really thinking maybe he's guilty of this. So, we kind of had a split because we had the one about controlled substances where you're thinking they're going Diddy's way, and then they had the one about clarification of, some of the other instructions that made you think they're going the prosecution's way. So it was quite a pendulum that was going on yesterday, and very exciting.
Isn't it weird? I mean, I would assume that when you have the jury, like the jurors all together and they're talking, deliberating, and then what do? They say, we're going to write a note about you? Like, how does that come to be?
A bunch of snitches, is what I'm hearing.
That's going to be so awkward.
The foreperson always, I think, takes their job very seriously, which is good. And I think the foreperson probably took charge and just said, I'm not sure if we should go forward, if you're that dug in. I feel that, that may be counter to the judge's instructions, and I'm going to ask. And the rest of them don't have any ability to stop that. So I think it's the foreperson just kind of taking the bull by the horns and saying, look, I want to make sure we're doing this right, which is good because, this kind of thing is going to open the door. They're going to question the jurors afterward. If there's a guilty verdict on any of the counts, probably they're going to deep dive into this and potentially ask to have it overturned, ask for a mistrial based on that question from that juror. They're going to be evaluating that down the road.
Let me ask you something. All the jurors have to agree on a verdict, right? And
Correct.
If you have one juror that says not guilty and everybody else says guilty, is that a hung jury, or he's just not guilty because one juror said so?
No, that's still so it's no. So it's only if you're saying, do they come out with an actual verdict? So if they cannot agree, they have to be unanimous.
Either way.
And so, right. Well, so what will happen is they'll say they can't reach a verdict, right? And so if, like oftentimes where there's a holdout, it can result in a hung jury because it has to be unanimous. But a lot of times if it's just one person, they'll eventually cave in. And so if they go to the judge and they say, we're
That's
judge will sometimes
justice.
ask
Yeah, I
for
don't
a
like
poll.
that
Yeah.
either.
I don't think you're guilty, but they're like,
that.
but they won't like me.
Right.
All right,
Yeah.
guilty.
Fine.
Peer pressure is
Fine.
putting
Wear 'em down.
somebody's life
Wear
on the
them
line.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ugh.
Sorry.
You know,
Lisa,
if
go ahead.
it's 11-1, and they often, I think, just wear them down. They argue. They keep
Peer
looking
pressure.
at the evidence. They don't just give up, but I do think they sometimes are convinced.
I can totally
when it's
see
in,
that. And people just want to go home at some point.
Sure, because you've been away from everything.
They're like, it ain't my life.
Oh,
Guilty
gosh.
or not guilty.
Right.
Now, we all took, we didn't make bets, but we just said what we thought. I think he will be cleared of all charges.
All of them?
Yeah.
You're saying all.
The only one that I think that, to me, is obvious, because I just revisited the ones he's charged with, is transportation to engage in prostitution.
Yeah,
That
that's the slam dunk.
That
Yeah.
clearly happened, but I don't know. Sometimes we're just like, nothing.
Well,
so
I mean,
I'm going to
and-
say he's going to be found not guilty in all charges.
So we're redoing it because this is new. This is brand new based on what we were guessing.
I'm basing mine on I'm not changing mine from yesterday.
So even though you know now that they're having issues with the jury.
I think even more so be not guilty, or he'll walk free.
See, I don't think he's going to walk free completely.
Okay.
I really, truly don't. I think there's going to be something.
There's
something.
Too much. There's this theory that if you throw a bunch of stuff up against the wall to see what sticks, something's going to stick.
Mm-hmm.
And they've kind of done that here. Now, they took away a couple things, which surprised me. I think that was a risky move when they took away the arson and kidnapping. But, I think the jury can – and it also gives the jury a way to kind of compromise, and say, okay, they didn't prove the sex trafficking, but they proved the Mann Act prostitution, transporting for the purpose of prostitution. So they can easily kind of split the baby and come up with a resolution.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, Jared, the bet would be changed. That I think he would be found guilty of something, but I think there's a very good possibility of a hung jury.
Okay. Now, Jason's on the jury. It'd be like a not so hung jury, but that's just his own personal.
Boy.
Lisa got it. I'm glad.
I want you to remember that
That
was Jared
is
this
a
time.
law joke.
That
We have
was
our official
Jared.
attorney. She appreciates. I did that for Lisa.
Because later he's going to be
I
like,
did it for
why are you
Lisa."
always so mean to me, Katie? Be like,
She
it
is.
wasn't me.
I'd have very few law jokes. I got to use them when I can.
Right.
A not so hung jury. If I was on to be moderately
We can
hung.
have penis law jokes. It's okay. We can have penis long jokes.
Thank you, Lisa. That's why we love you so much. We
Yeah.
can just be ourselves.
Yeah, if anyone else, I would not say that. If it was any other like stuffy attorney, I'm like, no,
You
don't say
can't.
it. You're awesome, Lisa. But Lisa, what do you think? You think that he'll be found guilty of something?
I think he'll at least, like, I totally agree with you. The Mann Act is a slam dunk. I think they're looking hard at some of those conspiracy charges and the drug distribution charges. So I think there's so much there. They threw it up against the wall. Something's going to stick.
Okay. All right, we'll see. It could be any day now. It could be today.
boy.
It could be tomorrow. I mean, it could extend into next week. Are they off? I guess 4th of July. It's a federal holiday.
It's got to be.
Yeah, but sometimes they keep going. It's really the judge will probably let them decide. They may, like yesterday, they told the judge they wanted to break at 5 and start again at 9, and that's somewhat unusual. Sometimes they want to go longer than 5 because that's kind of they really kept it to a business day kind of hours. Sometimes then that actually has a lot to do with whether they're close. Like if they're close to resolving it, and a break is often seen as not a good thing because you kind of lose your mental acuity for it, for the evidence and stuff. So we'll see if they take a break.
And they were not sequestered, so they can be Googling and talking to people. I guess they're not supposed to, but all right,
Not
Lisa,
supposed to.
you're the best. If you're ever injured, contact her right away at hireaheavyweight.com.